Hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar today at Jamf talking about mobile security. My name's Matt Woodruff. I'm the Worldwide Industry Lead for Security here at Jamf. We'll take you through about a 20-minute presentation, leaving about 10 minutes at the end for Q&A, or question and answer session. So please stick with us as we go through this agenda. First, we'll hit some overview of who we are. Then we'll dive into our security solutions itself and why are we in this space? How much have we gotten into this space? We'll also look at some deployment and workflows that we have to help ease the pain of deploying security solutions, while also, as mentioned, leaving a little time for Q&A to ask us questions. One of the biggest things with Jamf that we're always focused on as we look at the struggles of deploying Apple devices in the enterprise is validating that at all times these solutions are heavily secured, but we've also heard the struggles of end users and making sure that they are in fact simple solutions to both IT, security, and the end users so that the experience is seamless for everyone, while also making sure privacy is protected of the end users. And we all know that is a focus for Apple. It is a focus for Jamf as well. As we look at the post-pandemic world, the enterprise landscape has changed as each one of you are heavily focused on understanding what would it look like to stay completely remote from this point forward, or could we go the route of offering a hybrid work space? Well, we've also recognized that just in the last decade, it has quadrupled the amount of remote workforce. So therefore, that's the landscape that you're trying to understand that you can provide security around, while also making sure that secured access to both from devices based upon what users are on it, and making sure all your workflows are properly being used in the cloud using SaaS applications or connectivity from the cloud to your on-prem applications. We'll focus in on making sure that you can in fact secure Apple in the enterprise through a few different topics. We'll first hit on topics before we start diving into products themselves. Because as you look at each one of the topics listed here, there are each focuses of a remote and hybrid workforce, and we'll dive into a little bit of how we do our security research to make sure that we're offering the best security to Apple devices. So let's talk about these topics. First, creating a very simple zero trust network access. We want this to be an experience of where they're completely excited about working for you in your organization or participating in your educational institution, while the enterprise is making sure that they are empowering their users to stay productive at all times, then making sure that both the users and the devices stay compliant. And you have to encapsulate all of that into this new moniker that exists in the world called zero trust. Let's talk about what are the current challenges that many VPN solutions are having today that will lead us into our zero trust discussion. First, difficulty to scale. As you may know, as you have started looking at VPN concentrators or firewalls that will terminate your VPN connections, you'll understand that that hardware is rather expensive, and it's not just the hardware. There's also software licensing, making sure that you're also scaling to the use of a remote and hybrid workforce. So let's make sure that all of the network connections are properly configured and that they can get to all their corporate resources when they're on that VPN. So scaling that becomes extremely hard. Then you look at what is the user experience exactly like when they try to enable the VPN? Is probably slow, especially when the variety of network connections exist in the world for a remote workforce. You never know what type of home connection they have, what type of home network they have, or are they in a public space, a coffee shop, or others shared workspaces. Well, are there are they going to have frequent VPN reconnects, or are they trying to use this on a mobile device and it's just draining the battery and they can't get actually all their work done within a given day? Then last of all, is it adequate enough security? Meaning, is it set up in such a way that when the user connects to the VPN, do they have access to absolutely everything in your organization or not? Can you set up those protections to make sure that they span to your SaaS-based applications or your cloud-based applications? So those are some of the challenges while we look at overcoming them. And this leads into our zero trust network access discussion, in that we are eliminating here at Jamf the hassle of repeatedly reconnecting and re-authenticating to your legacy VPN and trying to make sure that those VPN hardware like concentrators or firewalls are constantly active and ongoing and load balanced. So why not have the ability of an always on connectivity, and it will properly hop whatever connection the user might be on, especially if it's a mobile device and it's hopping between Wi-Fi and cellular. Then, once they're connected, is it using the proper native technologies of Apple to make sure that it's lightning fast? Yes. As you look at making sure that those connections are encrypted from end to end, and that the user has properly authenticated, granted access through your access policies, allowing them that productivity that they need without having to worry about the VPN, the certificates, and other things. This happens to also span the deployment struggle that IT and security tends to have because of certificates or complex settings, and understanding what type of EAP connections, PEEP, TLS, what might those connections be, and troubleshooting them constantly, and also, we hope, decrease the amount of IT help desk tickets to try to support those legacy VPN solutions. So let's talk about how do you make sure that you're deploying a proper ZTNA that also supports Apple on same-day release? As you know, with Apple, they are constantly and properly updating their operating systems, whether it be for new features or patching security vulnerabilities. All in all, you need to validate that you are deploying those OS updates as quickly as possible and not being concerned about dropping your secure connections to corporate resources from your remote workforce. So that's how you can future-proof your deployment. Then we look at mobile threat defense. As you look at the deployment of all of these remote and hybrid workers and their mobile devices, at all times, threats might be attempting to get to your sensitive data of your organization. How you complete that step on mobile devices is making sure that at a network layer, you're properly setting up defenses. But what are the struggles that we've seen in getting this completed? Well, here's 3 big ones that we've heard. It's very difficult to implement. Once again, mobile threat defense hardware tends to also be expensive. And you're trying to also make sure that those threats are completed at a network layer, whether it be an on-premise setup of threat defenses and trying to identify cloud connectivity at all time. But there's also limitations to how those protections are extended to the network or to the apps. Then you look at, once again, user experience. We'll bring this up as we've done with VPNs. But in this case, when implementing a mobile threat defense solution, you'll find that they're doing forced scans multiple times, therefore decreasing productivity on the endpoints, and they're usually also not mobile friendly, as VPN solutions are also not mobile friendly. Then you look at inadequate security. One of the things that we've constantly heard is it's great because they provide certain protections about certain types of attacks, but they don't tend to provide any zero-day protections. But then there's also scheduled risk assessments getting completed, which means that it's not really real time. At some point, they'll try to block that particular threat in your environment. Then you also look at the apps that get installed on mobile devices tends to lead to reviewing the app content, the app communications. So therefore, you need proper insight in these apps that are getting installed on your corporate devices. So how do we try to overcome that here at Jamf? We go through the process of making sure that this is an always-on network protection. So no matter what type of connectivity they're on, and whether they're hopping, whether or not they're in a particular type of network filtration system when they're at home or when they're at the coffee shop, that at all times those sophisticated attacks like zero-day phishing attempts, malware connecting to command and control servers, or cryptojacking attacks, all of those will be properly protected on your endpoints, making sure they're not getting access to your corporate data. You'll also see real-time risk assessments getting completed, whether it be looking at the operating systems or looking at the apps that are installed and validating whether or not they're out of compliance. Maybe it's too old of an operating system. Maybe the profiles that are installed are possibly malicious, meaning the end users, especially on iPhones and iPads, they might go to a website that has been asking them to install a configuration profile that is trying to take over the network. Then also apps. Are the apps staying up to date as well, or are they falling out of compliance? That is a threat to your environment. Then you also look at the insights and making sure that you're identifying risk scores based upon the severity of the device, the user, the apps, and the operating system that is all trying to gain access to your corporate data. Then we look at, hey, let's unify all of this, making sure that there are proper integrations of these threats and the activities associated with them are getting pushed to the right SIEM, SOAR, or whatever your backend system may be, so that InfoSec, Threat Ops, incident response teams are all getting the proper data regarding what is happening from a threat prevention standpoint in our environment. Last of all is also taking a quick look at managing your cellular and mobile data policies. So whether they're, especially this mobile and hybrid workforce that we're constantly talking about in this session, they may or may not use a corporate cellular device. In that case, enforcing acceptable use on those devices can be sometimes hard, but also eliminating shadow IT, where, hey, these users are possibly trying to do things that are outside of IT's provision. That's also inadequate ability to control the data usage on your cellular data plans. We won't spend too much time in this section. We're very well aware that corporate cellular data plans are somewhat going away for a lot of large enterprises, allowing for BYOD or CYOD or some of those other newer deployment options that exist. But If you happen to have cellular data plans where you are trying your best to enforce allow and block list that are division or department specific and not universal, are you trying to make sure that your data policy and your acceptable use is getting enforced no matter where their connections are? Because it is a cellular mobile device also connecting to Wi-Fi. That user experience is also pretty bad at times with especially an app experience where trying to enforce acceptable use through an app or through a service and it's not getting enforced or it's not properly blocking at the right times, which causes the users to increase the amount of help desk tickets as they are getting constant inconsistent results no matter where they're trying to connect. Then you will have delayed results as you may not see active live results about what's going on. So how do we overcome this? With Jamf, we try to make sure that our product is constantly network aware no matter whether they're on Wi-Fi or cellular, that content filtering is constantly applied, that you are able to enforce your acceptable use policy of the corporate device, especially on cellular data plans, whether that's applicable by your HR team, your IT team, or some type of regulatory policy that you're trying to enforce. And you'll be able to set up content filtering policies on a per division or per department basis. So let's talk about the products. Now that we've talked about the different topics, when you're securing mobile in the enterprise, and more specifically Apple mobile in the enterprise, there are three main categories that we talk about from a product perspective. Endpoint security, we talk about Jamf Pro and its ability to enforce management functions on Apple devices, allowing you to set up, hey, this device is going to stay compliant because it will have our enforcement policies on the device. Then you have Jamf Protect for Mac OS. That's not really our focus for this webinar today, but please understand it does exist. Then we talked about mobile threat defense. The Jamf product that satisfies that particular need is Jamf Threat Defense, allowing you to enforce threat prevention and threat protection on iOS, iPadOS, Android devices. Then we look at network security, where we have Jamf data policy that goes towards content filtering and that acceptable use enforcement using a cloud-delivered proxy service. We also have network threat defense available for both macOS, iOS, iPadOS, and Android and Windows as well, making sure that at the network layer we are blocking those threats. Last of all, on the bottom there, we have Jamf Private Access that does complete all zero trust network access, making sure that the right compliant devices are using cloud identity authentication of your end users to gain access to fully encrypted connections to your SaaS and on-prem applications. So with mobile protection, this is what the end user looks and feels like within the app, showing what type of activity is occurring from a threat prevention, threat data and alert categories. Then you can also allow them and thread this into Jamf Private Access to make sure that they are only allowed to connect securely to corporate resources if zero security alerts exist in Jamf Threat Defense. While you look at Jamf Private Access, will enable access or enable encrypted access to your corporate data and apps. Jamf Data Policy will allow you to set up that content-based filtering. It is a category-based, so you can set up, hey, Netflix, YouTube are not allowed, especially when it's on cellular, so that you are not incurring overages charges by your cellular provider. Then if you look at it from an OS perspective, when you look at iPad, iPhones, you'll look at Zero Trust Network Access, Mobile Threat Defense, and data policies all exist. You look at Android, same thing, and Windows. Making this a very simple description, the reason why these 3 slides were so quick is we have you covered when it comes to your mobile workforce in applying Zero Trust Network Access, Mobile Threat Defense, and data policies for acceptable use. That is Jamf's vision of securing Apple in the enterprise. And as you look at making sure that all of this works for your environment, we do have cloud identity integrations for each part of this. Network protections and remediations for all of your mobile workforce, phishing and malware prevention, setting up ZTNA, content filtering, and compliance reporting, making sure that all devices are in fact low risk. A quick note about our security research teams here at Jamf. It is properly now called Jamf Threat Labs. It is a team of 20 plus security researchers that are constantly monitoring Apple's specific vulnerabilities that exist both on device, but then we also have a mobile security research team that are looking at delivering threat prevention at the network layer for all of our Jamf threat defense, private access, and data policy, allowing you to see that we are very active in the community. We constantly disclose our research and tons of experience existing on this team. This telemetry stream can occur on all of your mobile devices where when they are secured by Jamf, the data will get sent to Jamf Security Cloud, while also giving you the option of sending that on to your SIEM or SOAR on your back end. So now we're going to sit on summary and next steps. Jamf is here to help you overcome your VPN challenges by adopting a proper ZTNA solution, and proper in the aspect of how we use security enhancements to Apple's devices to provide zero-day support for all of Apple's updates to their operating system, but also using the proper frameworks within these operating systems so that we can detect and remediate threats, we can help you enforce acceptable use policies, and we'll feed all of this into your back end. We'd like to call out Jamf Nation and Jamf Marketplace are both areas that we would love you to head over to get more information from our community regarding what and how do we do these and implement these products, deploy these products. Marketplace will show you all the integrations that we have across these products. Reach out to learn more by reaching out to your Jamf account team to request a trial of this, or just schedule a demo and making sure that you connect with your partners